Okay, President Narducci, board members, I think we're ready to go. We're live on YouTube.
Fantastic. Thank you and good morning, everybody. Appreciate everybody attending this morning by Zoom. Never thought we'd be doing this so soon in our technology careers, but this is awesome that we're able to achieve this kind of stuff. Meeting is called to order at 10. My watch just went off. Here we go. 10:06. And can we have the roll call, Alicia?
Member Baker.
Present.
Member Broussard.
Present.
Member Burton.
Present.
Dr. Chang.
Present.
Dr. Kaur.
Present.
Superintendent Hoffman.
Present.
Member Kay.
Present.
Dr. Mack.
Present.
Member Ruiz.
Present.
Member Wellborn.
Present.
President Narducci.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And we'll proceed with the agenda and we'll move on to the president's report, which I don't have any, and I'll turn some time over to Superintendent Hoffman.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, President Narducci, board members. It's great to be with you all. I want to start my report by thanking our educators who have tirelessly transitioned to online and remote learning over the past month, and also to all of the parents and families who have supported their students' learning amid this new reality. I know it hasn't been easy, and I'm incredibly proud of our school's commitment to providing a high quality instruction and education, and also care for students during this time. Over the past several weeks, ADE has continued to work with our local, state, and federal partners to secure answers and resources. And I want to outline some of that work here today. ADE has partnered with the governor's office to distribute 200 hotspots to schools across the state who have inadequate access to Wi-Fi. We're grateful for these resources, but we know that an incredible gap remains in our students' access to technology resources, and we must continue to help fill that gap to the best of our ability. Our assessments team worked with federal partners and you all as well to secure a waiver for the federal statewide assessment requirement. Our exceptional student services team has worked with both federal and state partners to secure guidance for special education services. They are also hosting weekly meetings with special education directors across the state. Our health and nutrition services team has done a fantastic job of working with districts, charters, BIE schools, and nonprofits to ensure that students have access to meals. As of last week, Arizona Schools, with the support of the health and nutrition services team, has helped schools serve more than 2.5 million school meals. ADE is continuing to monitor guidance from the federal government on the implementation of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or the CARES Act. Arizona is estimated to receive over $350 million in funding designated to support school district and statewide recovery efforts. $69 million will go to the governor's office, and the other $280 will go through ADE for distribution to districts. ADE will work closely with other governing bodies and education leaders to ensure that there is a comprehensive and strategic approach to immediate and ongoing needs across the state. I want to reiterate that all of our agencies' updated information regarding school closures can be found on our website, the COVID-19 Resources Information page. All of the resources and information are broken down on the page into different categories, such as for school leaders, educators, families, and general agency information. So please go to our website, www.azed.gov to access these resources. It's important to share this information with your educators and administration, all the administrators, as well as families. With the countless changes in the last few weeks, the information has been changing very quickly, and we want to make sure that the most relevant and up-to-date information is making it to all levels of our school communities. And last, since we can all use a bit of good news, and I have shared a little bit about this before, I want to share an update about that comes straight from the Blue Ridge Unified School District and Pine Top Lakeside, where I shared before that their STEM students are using their 3D printers to create PPE for healthcare workers. The students, along with their teachers, Kevin Woolridge and Eric Fogel, have been creating PPE for communities across Arizona, including the White Mountain Apache tribe. So the update about that is, to date, they have created with their 3D printers 417 face shields, 212 ear savers for face masks, 15 multi-vent manifolds, 42 swivel adapters, 5 breath shields, a prototype CPAP conversion, and a positive end expiratory pressure valve. In these difficult times, I'm always uplifted by these types of stories of students and teachers who are rising to meet the crisis and finding ways to serve their communities. And as always, if you as an educator out there or administration would like us to highlight your achievements during this time, please email pictures, videos, stories to our communications@azed.gov email so that we can highlight your achievements. And that concludes my superintendent's report, and thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Hoffman. Truly appreciate it. And as you said, appreciate everything that's going on everywhere throughout our state in regard to how everybody's responding to the COVID-19 issues that have been presented to all of us. We'll move on to Director Williams' report, please.
Good morning, board members. So nice to see you today. So on April 15th at 5 p.m., the attestation form closed. We received 762 responses. The board staff pulled from the department's public school search. We have in the state 218 districts and 439 charters. So with the 762 responses overall on the 15th of April, we've received 300 district or district school responses and 462 charter operator or charter school responses. There is some overlap and multiple submissions for different schools within an organization. Therefore, state board staff, we began last week comparing the lists. And we will be going through reaching out to those schools that have yet to submit to ensure that they are submitting their attestation form. And I'll provide additional updates at the next board meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Alicia. We'll move on to item 3, which is move on to item 2, call to the public. And my understanding is that all public comments have been posted and publicly to the online board book and will not be read into the record. And public comments from both ACT and the College Board have been submitted into the record. Is that correct, Alicia?
That is correct, President Narducci.
Thank you. Then we'll move on to item 3, the consent agenda. And item 3C has been removed from the agenda prior to the setting of the agenda. So with that said, I'm assuming that everybody has had the opportunity to review the consent agenda and the substance behind it. And do I have a motion to approve items 3A, 3B, and items 3D through 3J on the consent agenda?
This is Daniel Corr, so moved.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, this is Michelle Kay.
Thank you very much. We have a first and a second. Can I have a roll call vote, Alicia?
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman.
Yes, and I would like to just add a quick comment that I'm just thrilled to see the 3H as part of this going forward, hopefully, the approval of Washington Elementary's their prep program application, because this is a direct result of our educator recruitment and retention team working with school districts to find innovative ways to recruit teachers to their districts. So I'm just very pleased to see that they've been able to get this submitted and look forward to continuing to support them in their efforts to recruit and train teachers from within their community. And I vote yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Aye.
Member Wellborn,
Yes.
Dr. Core,
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 4, which is call to the public. And my understanding is that no written public comments were received for this agenda item. Is that correct, Alicia?
That is correct.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 5A1, and I'll turn some time over to Alicia.
President Narducci, Superintendent Hoffman, members of the board, for items 5A1, 5A2, and 5A3, Deputy Director Ketcher Baden will be providing some background information. Ketcher.
Good morning, members, Superintendent Hoffman, President Narducci, and members. So I'm going to explain 5A1 through 5A3 because they're related and are all proposed rules to address educator certification issues that have surfaced as the result of COVID-19. So 5A1 and 5A2 address the same issue, but for different certifications. So I'll lump those two together. And as most of you know, most certifications require the applicant to demonstrate both subject knowledge and professional knowledge. And there are a lot of ways to demonstrate that, but one way to do it is, which is the way most graduates of educator prep programs take, is to take a test that is adopted by the board. Well, because of COVID-19, those testing centers have temporarily closed, and that leaves many graduates without a clear pathway to a certificate, which means they don't have a clear pathway to teaching in many of our schools in the fall. So to address this, staff worked with ADE, as we have for the last couple of years, worked really well with ADE and their certification unit to essentially give applicants who complete a prep program 1 year to demonstrate that subject knowledge and professional knowledge and allow them to work in schools in the fall without disruptions. 5A3 is not specific to any one certification issue, but instead an attempt to be a little more nimble as we move forward. So the statutory and regulatory requirements for educator certification were not waived through legislation or any executive order, nor were the board's rulemaking requirements. So that means that if more certification issues surface in the next couple months or year, the board will have to go through the rulemaking process again, which usually takes around 2 months. And we feel, frankly, that's a little too slow considering the circumstances. So to address that, staff recommends opening the rule, which is in 5A3, and that'll permit ADE to modify certification requirements still subject to board approval. So the cert folks over at ADE will probably have meetings with staff internally, identify some issues that have surfaced, and then bring those to the board for approval at the next meeting. And that'll still cut the amount of time to respond to any certification issues in half, which we feel is really important right now. And the proposed rule in 5A3 also has restrictions on what those modifications can be. So obviously they still have to comply with statute. They still have to be in response to issues that came up as the public health emergency. They can't be more restrictive than the current certification rules. So those are the big ones. And again, the board still needs to approve any modifications that come before it. So with that, we recommend opening the rulemaking on all 3 of those in 5A1, 2, and 3 today, and then closing those at our next board meeting. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ketcher. Appreciate the description. Any questions from the board members to Catcher? Hearing none, we'll take each of these separate, 5A, 1 through 3. Do I have a motion to open rulemaking on R7-2-614 other teaching certificates?
So moved. This is Daniel.
I'll second.
And
Broussard.
we have a first and a second. All in favor? Oh, do we need a roll call? We'll need a roll call though. Huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Yes.
Member Wellborn,
Yes.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
Dr. Core,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. We'll move down to item 5A2. Do I have a motion to open rulemaking on R7-2-616 standard professional administrative certificates?
So moved. This is Daniel.
I have a motion by Daniel, and who's the second?
Second is Member Mack.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. We have a motion and a second. We can have a roll call vote. Alicia?
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Member Member Kay,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Aye.
Member Wellborn,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
Dr. Core,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to the last agenda, 5A3. Do I have a motion to open rulemaking on R7-2-623 certification requirements in a public health emergency?
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Member Mack and a second by Member Burton. Was that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Dr. Core,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Aye.
Member Wellborn,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 5B. And 5B was the presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the follow-up with the local ed agencies on the educational opportunities. And here, and the drafts were passed out. I would recommend that the board provide feedback to staff on the field's follow-up survey. And after the presentation, I would like to hear from each member their thoughts so board staff can capture those thoughts and update the form to bring back approval at the May State Board meeting. Director Williams.
Thank you, President Narducci. President Narducci, Superintendent Hoffman, members of the board. Item 5B is the draft follow-up form that was asked for at the March 31st special meeting of the board. Board staff had some input from board members, some ABC policy groups, conversations with one another on what should be included in this form. The current draft exit survey is what we're calling it for right now, is quite lengthy, does have some good questions, probably has some questions that need to be reformatted a little bit. But as board staff is concerned, we are excited for your feedback on the current draft exit form. And then, like President Narducci said, we will bring a final draft to the board at the May meeting for potential action to be taken on that item. So with that, if any board members have any feedback for this form, this would be the appropriate time to give staff feedback. President Narducci, did you want me to go through a roll call vote so that each member can provide updates or feedback?
I think that's easier, just to see if anybody has any now, and then if not, they can follow up with you afterwards.
Okay, sounds good. So how about we start with Member Baker?
Good morning. I agree. There's some great questions. Also agree it's probably a little bit too lengthy. The only other thing that I'd like to add is that the form implies that schools are doing the same thing for first graders as they are for high school students, seniors, and I think that's probably a difficult assumption. So maybe there can be some discrimination on the form between how younger students are being treated and how older students are being treated, because I think it's quite different, or should be quite different, with the remote learning situation that we're in. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Baker. Member Broussard?
I think you did a great job on it. I do think that it's a good idea to leave this open for, anything else that may come up from the field, or when we take a look at what other states are doing. So good job, guys.
Thank you, Member Broussard. It was Jessica. Good job, Jessica. Member Burton.
Thank you. So I think this is a good start, this draft. I mean, I think we need it. I do think it's important to clarify the goals of this exit survey. As I mentioned in the last board meeting, the intent is not to be punitive in a way, but to gather as much information as we can, to get feedback from teachers and administrators, to see what worked and why it worked, and what didn't work and why it didn't work. Also, with this information, we can see where gaps exist related to technology. That's been brought up several times, but specifically to access to Wi-Fi or digital devices, as well as maybe some gaps in professional development as it relates to online teaching and learning. I'm hearing many positive stories, some really good stories about how districts and schools are pivoting quickly, and I'd like to get more information about how these schools were able to implement successful distance learning strategies. I think ultimately we're trying to, find out how, what these effective practices look like. So that might be a little bit more open-ended questions, but I think this information is important to gather. And then just finally, I think, and this may be a need for a separate survey, but I think parent input is critical to fully understand if these educational opportunities work for students. And those are my comments.
Thank you, Member Burton. Dr. Chang?
I also think that the open-ended questions for the districts set the right tone, suggests that we don't have any prior assumptions around negativity or positive. And so it is around relaying experiences and learning from this. I also like the additional questions on technology, access and capability, food distribution, and a question about the student learning, the diagnostic tests. So we're going to get from the district definitely some assessment of how well it went from an operational perspective, as well as a learning outcomes perspective. And the open-ended nature of this, I think, is what I envisioned as being, let's try to just get as much information about what happened and how we can learn from this. So I think you've done some really great things. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. Dr. Kaur?
Thank you. part of the danger of following some really smart folks is they've come up with a lot of great ideas already. So I would echo some earlier remarks. I had not thought about including parents at some point. I love that idea. I don't know how that's effectively done sometime in the future, but I think that is a great idea. I view this as just an opportunity to share best practices. This is an unwanted, unwelcome learning experience. So I love the idea of the open-ended questions that solicit what's working. We want to identify where the gaps are, but I think even more important are what are the best practices that have been successfully implemented across the state, and how can we bring them to scale to serve the state moving forward. So I think it's a great instrument that I think will yield some really great information that will allow us to better serve our students in the years moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Kaur. Superintendent Hoffman.
Thank you. I agree. This is very well done. And I also want to echo the comments I've already heard. I think there's no need to repeat those. I think they were very well stated. And I also think it's just important to note that that we are working with the state board staff. So ADE is working with the state board staff on a more in-depth technology survey that we have sent out to LEAs. And so I think it's also just important that we're not duplicating efforts, and I appreciate that this is a survey that we've already put out. So we plan to share that data with state board staff and with you all in the future once we are able to aggregate that data and clean it up. And I would say that maybe one way we could shorten it actually for the health and nutrition questions, that's probably data that we also already have and we could look at. And then if we need more information around the challenges of meal delivery, then we can putting out a survey that goes directly to the nutrition directors of the LEAs. So just something to consider. I'm just thinking about ways to make this, to make sure we're not duplicating efforts and working together on this. But I think overall this does set the right tone, and I think this will be helpful for us from the state level to be looking at what's been working, what's not working, what are challenges, especially with the concerns that there could be. We don't know what this is going to look like in the fall. So I think it's best for us to be thinking about those lessons learned and reflecting on those. So definitely, this is very much a good starting place for that.
Thank you, Superintendent Hoffman. Member Kay.
Thank you. Good morning. As everyone else has said already, I agree this is a great start. Agree with a lot of the comments that were previously made. I do have a couple specifics. Under the online instruction portion, there's a question about curriculum providers. I would add an additional question about any other supplemental technology or delivery systems. This is assuming that schools are using just one provider, and I know of a number of cases where there are several things being used. So maybe there's a curriculum provider, but then there's Google Classrooms or something else like that. So I would just add that one. And then I would also be interested in receiving information about other resources or support our schools are offering, because as Member Burton mentioned, I think there's some wonderful stories out there of schools really going above and beyond. So questions around social, emotional, or mental health services. We had a number of schools that received the school safety grant this past year, and I'm sure those resources are being put to good use in terms of counselors and social workers. In addition to that, maybe just another open-ended question around other opportunities or resources or support that the school has provided to families. There are a number of schools I'm hearing of that are working directly with parents. So again, opportunities to highlight the work that is happening right now. And then as far as technology, whether it sits in this survey or in the Department of Ed survey, again, around distribution of technology, how many schools have loaned out or distributed laptops or Chromebooks, hotspots, and then anyone who's working to connect families to low-cost Wi-Fi services that are out there. So overall, again, I think great job. That's the extent of my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kay. Dr. Mack.
Yeah, just echo everybody that's gone before. Really a great start. I agree with Superintendent Hoffman. If there's any way to not request that overlap and double information regarding meals, that would be great. Another way that might help with the flow of the survey is to organize it into sections and have, like the intro section where they're just telling who they are, a community engagement section where you're addressing the parents and this, that piece of it, curriculum section, platform section, and maybe just limit it to a few questions there. And then I think it's really important to, again, outline that purpose and the goal. It's really to allow the opportunity for them to share their stories, to celebrate their successes with them, share their challenges, and the opportunities they had to overcome those and how they chose to do that, but really emphasizing that storytelling. And so anywhere we can put in there, like, please link any, artifacts or any, website that you used or whatever, anywhere we can encourage them to just share the work that they've already done. So it's not, we're really sharing in their story. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Mack. Member Ruiz?
Yeah, I agree with almost all the comments. Really, really good comments. I think what Superintendent Hoffman, one of the questions or issues she brought up is start to anticipate what does the fall look like. And I don't know if there's anything in here that really kind of addresses that, but I know that a lot of different schools are starting to ask the question, well,
Member Ruiz, I think we lost your audio.
Coronavirus hotspot, and how do you kind of anticipate that? And I don't know if this is the questionnaire or the place to get that, but I know people are starting to consider that. But I think excellent.
Thank you, Member Ruiz. Member Wellborn?
Thank you. I would like us to just take a step back a little bit on this and look at what we're trying to accomplish. I think that by August, that the schools, my expectation is that the pressure to reopen the economy will have been addressed to the point where parents, if they're going to go back to work, really are going to want their kids back in school. So at this point in time, I would think it looks like, I think the schools will be open. And if there is any resurgence of the virus, that we'll have the ability to control it better. In comparison to a lot of other states, Arizona has been somewhat blessed that we don't have a huge problem with this virus. So far, it's affecting a relatively small percentage of our population. And so my guess is that the schools will be open in August, although things can change. But I do think that there will be a number of parents that will be concerned about the safety of their children and sending them to school. And so I'm thinking that we need to, as a board, we need to think about, well, how are we going to make this allowable for schools if parents are too concerned to send their child to school? What changes will be required in order to allow schools to continue to serve some of their population remotely and yet open the school up for the rest of the kids? And so with that in mind, I'm coming from the point of view that I think a lot of this information is nice to have, but I'm not quite sure it's a need to have, because there, in my view, there is a strong likelihood that by August, we're going to be back to normal. And I'm not sure how much of this information will be valuable when we get back to normal. And so my thought is that we hold off for a while on doing this survey and see how things play out. And if we really do need to help schools with teaching them about what are better practices here and all of that, which I think is a really noble idea and it's a good idea. My concern is that I think we're going to just kind of go back to the brick and mortar model. Along this line, though, I would suggest that we start to think about, well, why do we treat the brick and mortar schools differently than the AOI schools? It's possible that some students and families are thinking, this works really well. My kid does really well learning online, and he does better than going to a brick and mortar school. I'd like to keep it this way. Plus, it gives me a lot more flexibility with my family. So those are some ideas to think about going forward from the macro point of view. And I'd like to encourage the group to think about some of these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Wellborn. President Narducci?
Thanks, Alicia, and great comments from everybody on the board, all similar and different perspectives. And great job, Jessica, and the rest of the staff that worked on it. Just from a personal standpoint, I'd like to see what the uptick in demand is for online education after this, because I think there is going to be an uptick in demand for online education. So with all that said, Alicia, I don't have anything more to add from the great minds that already spoke, and we'll go on from there. Alicia, do you want to comment on anything that was said, or are we ready to move on?
President Narducci, I just want to say that I furiously wrote down all the comments, and we will update the form, make some changes, bring it back to May. So thank you very much for that conversation, board members. We appreciate it. And with that, I would suggest moving on to 5C.
Great, thank you very much. We'll move on to 5C, and it's an information only. Alicia?
Yes, thank you. President Narducci, Superintendent Hoffman, members of the board. Item 5C is information only. It is a presentation, discussion, possible action on the revision process for Arizona's educational technology standards. Member Dr. Mack has asked for this agenda item in the past. So I know that Dr. Mack is very excited about this agenda item. The materials showcase a brief timeline and structure, issues, really what the department and Sean Ross and his team are putting together for the review of these educational tech standards. So at this point, if Member Mack has any comments, that would be appropriate.
Thank you, Alicia. President Narducci, Superintendent Hoffman, members of the board. As Alicia said, I'm just really excited to see this on the agenda. I think there's no better time for it than now. You think about what's happened since 2010, there is a great need to revisit these. I look forward to the whole process and getting educator feedback, stakeholder input, and getting the process going so we can put something in place to help all our schools and guide the future of implementation in Arizona.
Thank you. Do any other board members have any comments, questions, concerns? Okay. With that, President Narducci, since that's an information only item, you can move on to item 5D if you wish to do so.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the comments, Member Mack. We'll move on to 5D, and Alicia, my understanding is that we do not need to move into executive session on this, and I can move directly into a motion. Is that correct?
That is correct. Materials that were normally presented to the board members in e-session were presented to members through Assembly in a confidential format. So that would be correct. Just move to a motion would be appropriate.
Thank you. So then with that said, do I have a motion to approve the eligible vendors regarding the request for proposals for the menu of assessments?
This is Michelle Kay.
So moved.
I have a motion from Daniel. Do I have a second?
Second, Michelle Kay.
Thank you, Michelle. We have a second from member K. And we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, Alicia, please.
Member Baker, Member Baker,
Yes, but I would appreciate just kind of an overview of where we're at with this whole process.
oh, sure. So agenda item 5D is the menu of assessments. If you recall, what would have been this spring, 11th graders were, schools had the choice of selecting ACT, Pearson, and Cambridge. Most schools selected ACT. This is another applicant to be added to that list for 11th grade students to take the assessment if it's chosen by that local decision for next spring. Member Baker, did you have any follow-up questions with that?
No, thank you.
Okay. And how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Broussard?
Yes.
Member Burton?
Yes.
Dr. Chang?
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman?
Yes.
Dr. Mack?
Yes.
Member Ruiz?
Aye.
Member Wellborn?
Yes.
Member Kay?
Yes.
Dr. Kaur?
Yes.
President Narducci?
I'm sorry. Yes.
Motion passes.
Fantastic. Thank you. And we'll now move on to item 5E. And this is the presentation, discussion, and possible action to approve waiving for the remainder of the school year, 19 to 20, the requirement of ARS 15901 that requires the school districts and charter schools to submit absence data at least once every 60 days. Director Williams.
President Narducci, Superintendent Hoffman, members of the board, Deputy Director Baden can discuss this waiver, I think.
Yes, I can. President Narducci, Superintendent Hoffman, and members. So part of the legislation that was passed, what's being called the school closure legislation, House Bill 2910, included a provision that allows ADE to waive school finance requirements subject to board approval. And that provision was essentially put into place as part of that legislation as a backstop in case we didn't think of everything in that legislation, or the legislature didn't think of everything to address in that legislation. And so ADE brought this item to the board. So I'm going to do my best to represent the intent behind it for the board's consideration. And primarily it's that statute right now requires schools to submit absence data every 60 days. There's been a lot of questions that ADE has received. I will also say the board has also received some questions about if they still need to submit that absence data. Really, the absence data helps to drive school finance calculations. And because the House Bill 2910 froze and continued funding before the school closures, requiring schools to continue to submit absence data no longer is needed to drive those school finance calculations. And so that's why ADE is asking the board to approve this waiver request. I'll also say that through the attestation form that we put out and some of the exit survey that the board just talked about and considered, there are going to be other ways that we ask and collect information on how schools are engaging with students right now. Because student engagement is probably a better measure for what schools are doing right now rather than traditional absence data. So with that, and again, with all of this waiver specifically, it is only for the school year that we are currently in. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Catcher? Hearing none. Thank you, Catcher, so much. Do I have a motion to approve waiving for the remainder of school year 2019 through 2020, the requirement in ARS 15-901A1 that requires school districts and charter schools to submit absence data at least once every 60 days?
So moved. Member Mac.
I have a motion by Member Mack. Do I have a second?
Second, this is Member Kay.
I have a second by Member Kay. Thank you. All in favor? Oh, roll call vote. Sorry, Alicia.
No worries. Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Dr. Core,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Aye.
Member Wellborn,
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Alicia and everyone. We'll move on to item number 6, which is the call to the public. I understand that there was one written public comment, and it has been received and entered into the record for item 7A2. And public comments will not be read into the record. Is that correct, Alicia?
That is correct.
Thank you. So now we move on to item 7. And item 7 is the consent agenda for enforcement actions. Just a reminder that item 7C has been removed from today's agenda and will not be voted on at this time. Staff will bring back this agenda item to a future board meeting. We'll be voting on all other consent agenda items with this motion. Alicia, just correct me, have any items from the consent agenda been removed?
President Narducci, the only item that was already removed is item 7C.
That's it. Okay, just wanted to make sure. All right, thank you. So with that said, do I have a motion to approve items 7A1 through 7A16 and item 7B?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
This is Patricia Wellborn. I moved the first.
Okay, so we have a motion by Member Wellborn, and who do we have a second from?
That was
This is Rita Chang.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chang. We have a second from Dr. Chang. So a roll call vote, please, Alicia.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Core,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Aye.
Dr. Chang,
Aye.
Member Wellborn,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to 7B, which is the approval of the permanent, sorry. What
Sorry,
am I
President. We're on item 8, call to the public.
moving? Oh, okay, sorry.
No worries.
All right. I was reading from a different agenda. Let's go, but for this meeting. Let's go on to call to the public for item 8. 2 written public comments, I believe, have been received and entered into the record. Comments were in reference to items 9A9 and 9G. Public comments will not be read into the record. Is that correct, Alicia?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. So we'll move on to item 9, which is the general session for enforcement actions. Before we begin this portion of the agenda, if any member has an item that they disagree with or would like to discuss further, I'd like to motion to table the item for a future board meeting so that the respondent and/or respondent's counsel can be notified of the board's discussion and then have the opportunity to address the board. I understand that some members have asked to have certain items tabled, and that's items 9A7 and 9A17. Is that correct, Alicia?
That is correct.
All right, so we will table those. So with that said, do I have a motion to table items 9A7 and 9A17 until a future board meeting and direct staff to inform the respondents of the change so that they may participate in the meeting? And 9A7 and 9A17, just for are two matters. The 9A7 deals with Gerald Appieri, and 9A17 is Valerie Wilson. So do I have a motion to table those two items at the request of certain members until a future board meeting and direct staff to inform the respondents of the change so that they may participate in the meeting?
So moved. This is Patricia Wellborn.
Thank you. I have a motion by member Welborn. Do I have a second?
This is member Kay, second.
And I have a second by member Kay. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, member Baker,
Yes.
member Broussard,
Yes.
member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Dr. Kaur,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
member Ruiz,
Aye.
member Kay,
Yes.
member Welborn,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes to table items to a future board meeting, items 9A7 and 9A17.
Great, thank you. With that said, I would like to take the remaining negotiated settlement agreements in a single motion. Do I have a motion to approve items 9A1 through 9A6, 9A8 through 9A16, and 9A18?
So moved. It's member Mack.
I have a motion by member Mack. Do I have a second?
Second.
By member Burton. I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Alicia.
Member Baker,
Yes.
member Broussard,
Yes.
Dr. King,
Yes.
Dr. Kaur,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman.
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
member Ruiz,
Aye.
member Welborn,
Yes.
member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 9B. And we have, okay. Item 9B. Do I have a motion to adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommendation of the PPAC to revoke any and all certificates held by Jennifer Burnley for a period of 5 years, and that all states and territories be so notified?
So moved. This is Daniel.
We have a motion by Dr. Kaur. Do I have a second?
Second by Patricia Wellborn.
I have a second by member Welborn. Roll call vote, please.
Member Baker, member Baker, your vote, please, for
Yes.
member Broussard,
Yes.
member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
member Kay,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
member Ruiz,
Aye.
member Welborn,
Yes.
Dr. Kaur,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes,
Motion passes for item B.
thank
Thank-
you. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Alicia, I interrupted.
Motion passes for item 9B.
Move on to item 9C. Do I have a motion to adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommendation of the PPAC to deny the application for certification and suspend any and all certificates held by Nathaniel Brown for a period of 18 months?
So moved. Daniel?
I have a motion by Dr. Kaur. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Member Burton. Roll call vote, please.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Aye.
Member Wilborn,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Kaur,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes for item 9C.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 9D. Do I have a motion to adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommendation of the PPAC to revoke any and all certificates held by Kristen Hess for a period of 5 years, and that all states and territories be so notified?
This is Member Broussard, so moved.
Thank you. We have a motion by Member Broussard. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Member Burton. Thank you. Roll call vote.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Dr. Kaur,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Aye.
Member Wellborn,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes for item 9D.
Thank you. Move on to item 9E. Do I have a motion to adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommendation of the PPAC to revoke any and all certificates held by Konstantinos Karas for a period of 5 years, and that all states and territories be so notified?
Member Baker, so moved.
Thank you. We have a motion by Member Baker. Do I have a second?
Member Mack, second.
Thank
Mack.
you. We have a second by Member Mack. Roll call vote, please.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Dr. Kaur,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Aye.
Member Wellborn,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
Member Baker,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes on item 9E.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to item 9F, which has been removed from the agenda and we placed in a future board agenda. That's correct. Right, Alicia?
President Narducci, members of the board, that is correct. Item
9F. Thank you. We'll move on to item 9G, and several members of the board, it is my understanding, have asked to table this agenda item. Is that correct, Alicia? Alicia, did I lose you?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. We cannot run a meeting without our executive director.
President
Alicia?
Narducci,
Yes.
this is Patricia Wellborn. I would like to remove and table this item for next month.
And I agree with you, Member Wellborn. So with that said, we'll move on. Do I have a motion to table item 9G and direct staff to inform the applicant that his case will be heard at a future board meeting so that he can participate in said meeting.
Calvin Baker, I so move.
We have a motion by member Baker. Do I have a second?
I second. This is Patricia Wellborn.
And I have a second by member Welborn. Can I have a roll call vote? Ketcher?
Yes, President Narducci, I'll take a roll call vote. Just also to let you know, Alicia, her computer just crashed, so I'll be filling in while she reboots it. So with the motion in the second, we'll do the roll call vote now. Member Baker?
Yes.
Member Broussard?
Yes.
Member Burton?
Yes.
Dr. Chang?
Yes.
Member Kay?
Yes.
Dr. Mack?
Yes.
Member Ruiz?
Aye.
Member Wellborn?
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman?
Yes.
Vice President Kaur?
Yes.
And President Narducci.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Thank you very much. And thanks for jumping in like this, Ketcher. We'll move on to item 9H. Do I have a motion to adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommendation of the PPAC to suspend the teaching certificates of Tasha Smith for a period of 18 months and that all states and territories be so notified?
Member Broussard, so moved.
Thank you. I have a motion by member Broussard. Do I have a second?
Second by Patricia Wellborn.
Thank you. Member Welborn has a second. Can I have a roll call vote, please, Catcher?
Member Baker?
Yes.
Member Broussard?
Yes.
Member Burton?
Yes.
Dr. Chang?
Yes.
Member Kay?
Yes.
Dr. Mack?
Yes.
Member Ruiz?
Aye.
Member Wellborn?
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman?
Yes.
Vice President Kaur?
Yes.
And President Narducci.
Yes.
And President Narducci, just to let you know, I think Alicia is.
He's back on? Okay. We'll move on to item 9I. Do I have a motion to adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommendation of the PPAC to revoke any and all certificates held by Aaron Maxwell, Ireland, for a period of 5 years, and that all states and territories be so notified?
It's Michelle
So
Kay.
moved.
I have a motion by Michelle.
A
Okay.
second by member Wellborn.
And a second by member Welborn. Thank you. Can we have a roll call vote? I don't see Alicia, Catcher. And we can't hear you, Catcher.
No.
Uh-oh.
There you go. Gotcha.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then we would have been really good. Okay, the motion in the second on 9I. Member Baker?
Yes.
Member Broussard?
Yes.
Member Burton?
Yes.
Dr. Chang?
Yes.
Member Kay?
Yes.
Dr. Mack?
Yes.
Member Ruiz?
Aye.
Member Wellborn?
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman?
Yes.
Vice President Kaur?
Yes.
President Narducci?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move on to 9J. Do I have a motion to adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommendation of the PPAC to revoke any and all certificates held by Kayleen Porras for a period of 5 years, and that all states and territories be so notified?
So moved.
I have a motion by member Burton. Do I have a second?
Second, member Baker.
Thank you, member Baker. We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Member Baker?
Yes.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Aye.
Member Wellborn,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Vice President Corr,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move on to 9K. Do I have a motion to adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommendation of the PPAC to revoke any and all certificates held by Richard Williams for a period of 5 years, and that all states and territories be so notified?
So moved.
Thank you, Member Burton. We have a motion by Member Burton. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Member Broussard. Roll call vote, please.
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Aye.
Member Wellborn,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Vice President Corr,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
And the motion passes again.
Thank you. Move on to item 9L. Do I have a motion to adopt the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the recommendation of the PPAC to deny Eric Conrath's application for certification on the grounds of unprofessional or immoral conduct, and prohibit Eric Conrath from submitting an application for certification for a period of 2 years, and take disciplinary action through suspension of any and all certificates held by Eric Conrath for a period of 2 years, and that all states and territories be so notified?
So moved.
I have a motion by Member Broussard. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Dr. Chang. Thank you. And can I have a roll call vote?
Member Baker,
Yes.
Member Broussard,
Yes.
Member Burton,
Yes.
Dr. Chang,
Yes.
Member Kay,
Yes.
Dr. Mack,
Yes.
Member Ruiz,
Aye.
Member Wellborn,
Yes.
Superintendent Hoffman,
Yes.
Vice President Corr,
Yes.
President Narducci.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much, and appreciate everybody reviewing those. There were quite a few this go round, and I thank everybody for their diligence in doing all of this. We'll move on to item number 10. I'm going to have a request of staff, but I see Alicia just joined us. Welcome back, Alicia.
Sorry. Computer crashed.
We heard. Sorry about that. Catcher did a fine job trying to fill your shoes after your departure. And
Very glad to hear that.
we were able to complete item 9, and we're moving on to item 10. Before I have a request for staff, I just want to make a comment. Just thanking everybody for adapting to the way that we've done business in the last couple of months. I think it's been smooth and uninterrupted, and I think our staff at ASBE has done a wonderful job. And I thank you all very much for keeping us in the loop and keeping us connected, while also keeping everybody safe at the same time. And so thank you so much. One request that I have, and Alicia and I had talked about this maybe about a week ago or so, is to request staff to work on an updated online instruction application, updated Arizona online instruction application to the board for the May meeting, so that we can open up the AOI application early for districts to submit. I'm hoping that opening the application early will allow for those districts that do not currently have an AOI program to be approved prior to the next school year. As I said earlier, I just think that some of the demand we're going to have for online schooling is going to be an uptick, maybe not significant, but I think there's going to be an uptick. So I just wanted districts to have that opportunity to get in their applications early, so before the school starts. So that was one of the requests I had. So any other members have anything else that they want staff to consider before our next meeting, or even just to start considering? Alicia, I'm going to turn it over to you. Maybe we want to go person by person.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, let's do that.
Member Baker?
Yes, I'm not requesting a specific item, but I just want to make the observation or comment that right now is not the time to focus on accountability, because it's a time of high stress for so many people. But ultimately, our responsibility is to make sure that students are learning. So somewhere along the line here, we need to address the issue of accountability. How do we know that students are actually learning, and how can we help school districts address the gap that is occurring with students who are not learning right now, who are not participating in education as they should be. So I would like that issue for all of us to be thinking about that issue, and perhaps, as I mentioned to staff last week, perhaps we should be looking at the possibility of doing some kind of reduced statewide testing in the fall, to not as a punitive measure, but so that all of us and individual schools and school districts know what kind of gap exists, so that we can move forward with that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Broussard?
I have nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Member Burton?
I just would again like to thank you and all the state board staff for working in these less than desirable conditions. And I look forward to the revised exit survey.
Thank you, Member Burton. Dr. Chang?
Nothing in addition to what you all have talked about.
Thank you. Dr. Kaur?
Just to share that, as our high school seniors look to transition onto higher education, this would be the time of year where we would be doing thousands of assessment exams for appropriate placement in college level courses. Those can't and aren't being done right now. And community colleges and universities across the state are taking a look at unique and different ways, multiple measures of appropriately placing students into higher ed courses. So we're trying to learn some best practices that may in fact better serve our students moving forward. But all your community colleges and state universities are open for business and looking to accept students into higher education moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Kaur. Superintendent Hoffman?
I also want to thank board staff. Thank you for continuing to collaborate and work on all of these important items with us. And I would also, after hearing Dr. Kaur's comments, also like to comment that thank you so much to ABOR and our community colleges for your collaboration during this time. It really takes all of us working together right now and having all of the needed flexibilities to ensure student success, not just in our K-12 sector, but going all the way through to our college and university settings as well. So just really appreciate the collaboration during this time and hope everyone continues to be well.
Thank you. Member Kay?
Thank you. Other than to acknowledge again, Executive Director Williams and the entire state board staff, I have nothing further. Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you. Dr. Mack?
In addition to thanking state board staff, Executive Director Williams and your leadership, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mack. Member Ruiz?
For me, I'm looking at, I always try to be an optimist, eternal optimist, but I always try to plan for like the worst case scenario. And I think most people at this point are now starting to think about the fall. And I know there are people who are much smarter and who are in higher positions of authority that'll start to take a look at it. But I think we should soon start to roll out, possibilities. What does the future look like? And I think most schools out there, they want to have a sense of what's going to happen. Worst case scenario, okay, maybe it's not the worst case scenario. Maybe you just have some areas where there's difficulties. What would it look like? And then, best case scenario, everything goes back to normal. I mean, in that case, you don't have to plan for that. But I think that soon we ought to have some sort of direction, some sort of a sense of that, we're looking at that. And then just thanks also again to Superintendent Hoffman, all her staff, AD, and then also staff here for the State Board of Education. I think everybody's really responded so wonderfully. You just see so many, schools, I know in our area, just really responded wonderfully. People who have made donations, and you see it's like the best of times, the worst of times, you get the best of times. You see that people rise to the occasion and the goodness of people comes out. So that's been really inspiring.
Thank you, Member Ruiz. Member Wellborn?
Thank you. I just would like to echo some of the compliments that we've heard already on thanking the staff at the State Board of Education, as well as for the leadership that Superintendent Hoffman has provided and all the work that the department has done. Really, the transition to this remote learning has been very amazing. With that said, I would like to echo some of what Cal said about accountability, recognizing that we will not have any scores for this spring, so that would impact all the growth scores for next year. So we have to think about what's reasonable and realistic, and how we're going to, when and how we bring back accountability in a fair way. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Wellborn. President Narducci?
I think everything that's been said has been said, and everything that needs to be said has been said. I appreciate everybody saying it. Alicia, anything
Yes,
from
sir.
you guys?
No, sir. I just that I have an amazing staff, and so I'm very thankful for them.
Thank you. I appreciate all the board members' time and effort and caring and service. Thanks again to the staff. With that said, what is our next meeting, Alicia? I forget. May?
Oh, you would.
I'm sorry, forget it. It's
May
sometime.
May, hold on, I'll pull it up. The whole computer is just not working today.
That's okay.
It is Monday, May 18th.
And at this time, are we planning on Zoom?
At this time, we will plan for in-person, but we'll plan for Zoom as well. We're doing both.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And so with that said, we can adjourn our meeting at 11:24. Appreciate everybody being on. Thank you.